and they're off.
Here we go.
Further Faster, the best independently owned outdoor store in the known universe. Whether you're heading out on climbing, paddling, tramping or running adventures, look no farther than Further Faster for all your gear and expertise needs over the summer. Head over to 57A Buchan Street, Sydenham. I can't say it. Sydenham.
You've got to collapse the vowels, just Sydenham.
Sydenham, Ototahi, Christchurch. Or hit them up at furtherfaster.co.nz.
Perfect.
Not really.
We should keep it.
Sydenham. Okay.
It goes something like further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Oh, further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Dirt Church Radio.
Episode 307 of Dirt Church Radio Trail and Ultramarathon Podcast. I'm Matt Raymond.
And I'm Andrew McDowell.
It's good to see you, man. What have you been up to?
Bro. Just the usual. Not enough hours in the day to do everything that everybody wants, but I think everyone can relate to that lead up to Christmas. It is mad.
It feels the least Christmassy Christmas on living memory for me.
Oh, do you have your Christmas tree up?
Yes. Christmas tree's up. Christmas presents are bought. Christmas cheer is for what passes for Christmas cheer in the public health system is being thinly spread around.
Do you have Christmas trees in the hospital up, or do you not do that?
Well, where I work is in the lower ground floor of a large New Zealand hospital. We don't have any Christmas tree. Oh, we got a tiny one actually. That's a lie. But where I work doesn't have any windows, so a tree wouldn't necessarily survive, and we'd probably get motor neuron disease from a fake one. So we've got a tiny little one.
Okay. It's a very complicated answer. So
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, we do. Anyway, yeah, everyone's tired. I'm tired. You're tired. We're all tired. People have either just done big races or stressing about big races coming up.
Well, I mean, what a weekend, right? Talk about races.
Take us through it. I mean, we're there, right? We're at this point in the Aotearoa calendar. 4 races, one island, one weekend.
Yeah, the South Island was kind of greedy because it should have even been 5, shouldn't it? The
It should have been
Wilds
5.
got cancelled because 5 races in the same. I mean, does nobody talk to each other?
The week after Kepler.
Yeah, and we didn't even acknowge Kepler. How good did that look?
I think you swing at the king. You gotta make sure you knock him out, right? And
what do we have? We had obviously the big talk of the town, and the big talk of the community is the spectacle. And I was fortunate enough to catch up with Emma Timmis, the winner of the 100-mile race, 3rd overall. We've got a little interview with that coming up. Overall, it just sounded like it was a heck of a weekend.
Every distance from literally every distance from 1 mile to 100 miles.
But also just the cross-section of runners. You got these proper Olympians absolutely throwing it down over a 1 mile distance, which you ask anyone, they'll tell you it's awful, that distance. It is so hard, And then, all the way to what sounds like one of the most brutal 100-mile races or courses that New Zealand has ever issued. So, very exciting.
It might be a bit of you next year. Take us through.
What else was there? There was the Valley Ultra in Craigieburn, which is somewhere west of Christchurch towards the big mountains there, and that looked pretty epic as well. I'm loving the photos from that one. What else did we have? We had Rocky's Backyard.
Yep, another backyard, so you can't
Yep.
swing a dead cat without hitting a backyard ultramarathon in New Zealand, it would appear.
Do we know how many we got now?
14 at last count.
And the good old chaps down in Dunners doing Crush the Cargill.
They had the old kids on. They were the cheeky upstarts for a long time, and now they're kind of the establishment, aren't they?
Gosh, the establishment they're gonna start getting ideas. We can't have that. Rachel Keeper and Chris Taylor got the job done. The 24-hour event there, so that was super cool. And I didn't do any results for spectacle, but Kyle Malone 25:38. Massive effort, on what sounds so hard. And obviously Emma 27:05. 100K, Kate Annan 15:47. Vajan Armstrong 13:31 across that course. And good old Sam Harvey 50K, 4 hours 18 minutes. And the amazing unbeatable Caitlin Fielder in 4:39.
So in I guess what speaks to that buoyant right in the head, he did the mile as well.
The mile, not the miler.
Yes, not the miler. He come from winning the miler at Kosciuszko, but he did the mile. I think he did it in 4:33.
Good Lord. Is that before the 50K?
After.
It's after. Okay.
Yeah, he did it the afternoon just as a active recovery.
Madness. Yes. In other words, an absolutely action-packed weekend. It's just so great to see New Zealand trail running just going so strong, strength to strength, really.
We love a per capita, don't we? This week, this is an amazing episode. We've got Emma, we've got these results, and we've got Ali talking, who's just back from travelling. So we're all back in the same country now, which is cool. But Ali spoke to Abby Hall, and Abby is, for those who don't know, she's a professional trail runner, runs for the Adidas Terrex team, and she was the Ultra Trail Kosciuszko 100K winner. And this is a really exciting chat. Super excited to bring it to you.
A very funny quick story about Abby during the interview. I cut it out, but while Ellie's interviewing her, she gets someone knocking at the door who's like just in the neighbourhood doing roofs, and you can hear it in the background. She opens the door and he goes, "Are you a trail runner?" And she goes, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Oh, do you run for Adidas?" I'm thinking, what has she got, like 50 pairs of Adidas shoes out the front of her house or something? She never actually explained how the guy just knew. And he spent like 5 minutes just talking about how he loves trail running and he wants to run with her and all this sort of carry on. And she's like, I have to go.
Wow.
It must happen often. Anyway, I thought it was funny. Sorry, as you were.
No one's knocking at my door going, "Are you a trail runner?" But that's...
Never.
But I'm not Abby Hall. But before we get into the Abby Hall, we should probably get into the Emma Timmis interview.
I am delighted to be joined by Emma Timmis, who has come in hot off the heels of winning the inaugural 100-mile spectacle race in Nelson. Emma, how are you doing?
I don't know how to answer that.
Too soon?
I'm not as bad as I thought I would be, but I am on the sofa not intending to move.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'd like to spend my Monday on the sofa. Obviously, it was a heck of a weekend, and from all accounts, it sounds like the races went extremely well, just watching it from the outside. I've heard nothing but positive comments from everyone who took part. Is that how you felt about it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, they took on a lot, having so many different races and so many events and various things happening over the weekend. But from my perspective, everything went really well, especially considering the heat, which I don't think was expected. It was really hot, and that could have been a bit of a disaster, but I think everyone did really well.
Yeah, I understand in the 30s, do you think we hit? I mean, that's pretty
so,
hot, eh?
yeah. Yeah, the Friday evening felt worse than the Saturday to me, but I'm not sure if that's actually how it was.
Yeah, I mean, 5:00 p.m. start on the Friday, is that right?
Yes, and it was very hot.
Yeah, again, there's nothing cold about 5 p.m. at the moment. So, yeah, I imagine that was quite a hot start. And then into the night, how was that first night? Did you feel kind of fresh? Because these afternoon starts can be a bit funny on the old circadian rhythm, eh?
Hey gang, it's Matt here. I just wanted to let you know about That's It, which is a range of natural skincare products from Aotearoa, 100% natural, antibacterial and antifungal. I'm using the anti-chafe gel because things are getting hot over summer and I want to keep moving in tip-top shape. This stuff is delicious. It smells great, goes on easy, washes off really well, doesn't wreck your clothes. I'm a massive fan. I'll tell you who also is a massive fan, Inaugural. He is using it to keep him moving safely and without undue discomfort in his 8-stage races over 8 continents in 1 year. Look, head to that'sit.nz for more information. Check out their range of products. They've got heaps and heaps of stuff, but their anti-chafe gel, it really is that good. That'sit.nz. Give them a crack.
Ditch Radio.
Yeah, it was my first ever kind of through the night run. I've never done a race that starts in the evening, never done anything like that. And I anticipated that I was going to be exhausted. So I went prepared with caffeine. but had
Yes.
read up some research that said don't take caffeine until you feel tired. And I actually didn't feel tired at any point. So I don't know what happened. It was a miracle.
Well, I mean, it's quite a technical course, is that right?
Yes, you had to be alert.
Yeah, and so that I've found that the more technical the course, the easier it is to stay awake because you're so terrified of tripping up and falling.
Absolutely. And that really technical part for me was when we went into the night and it was dark. So it was kind of a godsend that it got cooler, and maybe that helped with alertness and staying awake.
The aid stations, were there enough of them? How was the support there? Was it all pretty good stuff?
Amazing. Yeah, actually, there was probably only there was one where I ran out of water between them. That was just the really technical bit. It was probably only 10 Ks between, but probably took about 2 hours or more because it was really technical. But other than that, all the aid stations were amazing. All the people at the aid stations were incredible. Throughout the night, they had lights on, which just gives that like festival vibe. It makes you feel all warm and cozy.
Now, obviously, you finished top three. Well, of overall,
Yes.
third overall, which is fantastic. Were you in third, or were you sort of in fourth? You were hovering around that podium, weren't you, for a lot of the race? Did you have your eyes on that overall podium?
No, not at all.
Okay.
After the last 2 years of being kind of dedicated to the treadmill, I was just hoping to get round. And
Yes, there's
kind
a lot of treadmill, wasn't there, leading into this?
yeah, these quads are not used to going up and down hill.
Of course. So yeah, I mean, you are used to a flatter sort of a race. But clearly you're able to do this. I mean, you got an amazing result. So clearly one ability does translate to the other.
Well, I think for me, this is just my love. Like, I love trail running. I love hills. I love the mountains. That's my background's kind of from a rock climbing background. So that's what it's all about to me. The treadmills were just a bit of an experiment with resilience and mental strength. So being back on the trails is where I want to be.
I'm pleased to hear that. Yeah, you can only do a treadmill for so long, right?
Oh, I know. Never. Just don't do it.
And there are a bunch of other races. I actually lost track of all of them. There were so many. There's a 100K, a 50K. There was a 1 mile race. Was there anything shorter than 50K?
There's a 21.
Yep, 21. Awesome.
Yeah, and a 10K, actually. There's a 10K on the Friday night, on the Friday evening.
Gosh, they took a lot on, didn't they, for an inaugural year?
A lot, yeah. And relays. There was relays in there, and there was kids' races. And honestly, there was so much, but it seems like they've pulled it all off.
Did you make it back in time to catch the Black Seeds?
I did.
You did?
However, I prioritised having a shower and a pizza.
Shout out to our fellow trumpet player / trail runner Barrett Hocking playing trumpet in the Black Seeds there.
Yeah.
And I suppose the ultimate question is, would you go back?
I don't think I have a desire to go back for the 100 mile.
Okay.
However, the event was spectacular, the spectacle. So I would go back for the event, maybe the 21K.
21 sounds a bit easier right now.
Moment,
We'll give it a few more days.
100 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go back for the 10K.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations. Epic result. Showing nearly all the lads how it's done. And also, we were talking earlier about Jean Beaumont. She's the queen. She did so well. Yep. We love Jean. And congrats to the organisers for pulling off what must have been an enormously difficult weekend. And I've got FOMO. And I might make my way down there next year, I think. It sounds pretty fun.
Oh, you'd love it.
All right. Thanks, Emma. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Church Radio.
She's incredible, eh? She's so tough.
Yep.
Strong and cool. And
she's funny. Yeah.
All those things.
She's great. Lovely to talk to.
Right. Moving on from one pretty good run to this, which is a...
It's the greatest run ever. It's the greatest run ever.
Greatest Run Ever, which is brought to you by Squad Run. Give their 4-week special coaching trial a go. You can find the link on the website, which is www.dirtchurchradio.com. This is the part of the show where we ask you to write into us and tell us your greatest run ever. It doesn't have to be a race or a mountain summit. It might just be a run around the block, something that's sung to you for some reason. Send them in to us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. And you slack bastards, we are getting very, very low.
Oh.
There will not be a Christmas without a greatest run ever.
Oh.
I don't make the rules.
And there must have been
Oh,
in the last few weeks.
This weekend, yeah.
Come on.
Send them in. dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. This is from Chris Flack. What an experience. I'm still smiling as I think back to the Paris Marathon earlier this year. They say marathons are 2 races, a 32k warm-up and a 10k race, and this run definitely felt like this. We were going to Europe for a family holiday, and I'd worked out, with a bit of juggling, that we could be in Paris for the marathon. I jumped on the opportunity to sign up for it, especially as it's one of the iconic marathons outside the big 6 majors. I'd also heard that it was one of the biggest marathons in the world, and the crowd support was super passionate. These reports were bang on. On the morning of the race, I went through my normal pre-race routine: porridge, nipple plasters, and magnesium. And he puts not all together though, which I sort of had worked out. But yeah, porridge, nipple plasters, and magnesium. I had my Paris metro route mapped out in a piece of paper and I was ready to go. When I got to the metro, I started to see a few fellow marathon runners. I gave them the universal nod of approval. Soon I changed stations at the metro line that would take me to the bag drop-off near the start. Suddenly there were marathon runners everywhere, like a pack of bees swarming the nest, everyone with different levels of nerves, checking gear, hydrating, and going through their race plans. I embarked out the station and then followed the mass of other runners to the bag drop area. As I rounded the corner, more and more runners appeared. I did my pre-race check and then handed over my drop bag. Then I followed the others to the start line on the Champs-Élysées. The start area was electric. I'd never seen that many people in my life. There were people everywhere taking selfies and videos. After a bit of a wait, my section was just about ready to go. The crowd was cheering each wave of runners as they left. The excitement grew as finally it was my turn. The first 5k blew past. Runners covered the road as we winded our way through the streets of Paris. The body was feeling good and the conditions were perfect for running. 10k, 15k, 20k. The Ks were ticking by. The crowds were lining the streets on both sides, at least 10 people deep in most places. 21k. I saw my wife and kids. They were shouting for me to keep going. Life was great. 25k. Running is great. I was on target for my goal time. 30k. Time to increase the pace. But suddenly things felt a lot harder. My legs were starting to cramp up. I thought about trying to use my kids for motivation, but I knew I wouldn't see them again on the course. I thought about my twin brother who had passed away nearly 6 months ago. He wasn't a runner. So I asked him for some advice and what to do. He said, "I'm proud of you, bro." I said, "Any other advice?" And he said, "Be nice to your wife." I was hoping for some words of inspiration rather than marriage advice. Didn't he know I was running a marathon? 35k. I run through a tunnel. Suddenly we couldn't hear the crowd chanting. All I could hear was the drummers hitting the drums at the same cadence that I was running. I passed this 37k marker, only 5k to go, so much pain. I went to the toilet to gather my thoughts for the final push. I thought to myself, who am I running for? And realised it wasn't my kids and it wasn't my twin brother. I was running for me and all the soreness and pain that comes with it. I was running for the challenge that these moments bring. I gave myself a pep talk and said it's only 5k to go. It's like a park run on Saturday with your mates or a run around Hagley Park after work. I came out of the toilet like a new man. My legs, my beautiful legs, they were working. If I could run 6 minutes per kilometre from now on, I would get close to my 4-hour goal time. I started running. Then, like a gift from the running gods, the 4-hour pacer appeared in front of me. I followed closely by a small group of runners. I couldn't believe my luck. I locked onto the back of this group, and to my disappointment, they started to slowly get further and further away from me. I told myself Sam Harvey-style mantras to push through the pain. What's the other side of discomfort? Comfort. We could debate that, but I zoned in on the green line, which marks the shortest way to the finish, hoping it would get me there quicker. 40k. I thought about what I was doing and how lucky I was to be running the Paris Marathon. Then it hit me. Soak it in. Soak it in. And at that moment, with 2 kilometres to go, I just found it. The joy of running. The joy was around me. Joy was everywhere. It was powering me to the finish line. Suddenly, and as if by magic, the crowd was 20 people deep, and they were shouting, "Allez, allez." The route started to get narrower and narrower. The crowds and runners started to bunch, and it felt like I was running in a movie, my movie. I felt like I was floating. I thought about taking out my camera to take a video and try to capture this feeling, but I stopped myself and said, "You're in it. You don't need to record it." Things started to feel like they were happening in slow motion, or maybe that was my running. I looked around and narrowly avoided some kids as they joined their dad for the last 700 metres. I got overtaken by a guy pushing his girlfriend into the finish line with his hand on her back. I sidestepped some more excited fans trying to high-five their friends. The cobblestones are making us all come together. I've got 500 metres to go. I felt like I was running in the Olympics. People everywhere, all screaming for me and the 56,000 other runners to keep going. The crowd was so close and so tight that you could touch them. I could smell the sense of anticipation, and the hairs on the back of my neck were tingling. Maybe this is my Olympic moment, the closest I will ever get, and I didn't want this to end. I felt the feeling, that I've had a few times when you're floating along, that feeling of pure joy, that feeling that Chris McDougall talks about in Born to Run. I gave myself another couple of sprays of cramp spray. The spray and my race is just about finished, and I hope that my legs don't give up now, and I need to crawl to the finish line. So I repeat my mantra, soak it in, soak it in, soak it in. I want to freeze frame these moments so I can rewatch them when I'm 80, when my legs don't work as well as they do now. I want to grab the person next to me, shake them and say, are you feeling this? Are you floating like me? I realize I don't have the energy for anything extra, and I'm too scared that my legs will cramp up so close to the finish line. I keep smiling and moving forward. The green line is gone. I enter the finishing chute. The finish line is only 25 meters away. I throw my arms in the air and take those last few steps forward to the line, trying to slow everything down. I think of everything I've done to get here and wonder why we do this to ourselves. Why do we run? Why do we do marathons? Maybe for me, it's the feeling of joy, the joy of running. Those painful last 5 kilometers taught me that all we really want to do is float, floating along with the joy of running. Such a privilege to read these.
Yeah, I mean...
Because I don't read them generally before we read them out. Like, I'll chop them up into paragraphs generally, but this was beautifully put together. And that part about, his brother is just, it's incredible at what people endure, hey?
The competitor in me wants to know if he actually did beat his 4-hour time. He doesn't actually say.
Send it in to us, Chris.
Cool.
Have you ever done a major? Have you ever done, you've done UTMB, have you ever done a 56,000?
No, 2 reasons. One, when I lived in Boston, I thought running was stupid, so I didn't run the Boston Marathon, even though I'm currently qualified for it. If I'm going to travel around the world, I'm going to do it for a race that lasts a really long time. For me, it's not worth traveling that far to just do a marathon. Personally, I can't justify it. But I don't hold it against anyone who does, because I get it.
No,
running those majors is, if that's your thing, then that's super cool.
Yeah, I have to admit, possibly the only one that would ever turn my head would be like a big, New York.
I'm not very good in crowds anyway, so the idea of running with 56,000 other people terrifies me.
You get one of those pool noodle hats.
Yes.
Enough wittering on. Let's crack into this interview that Ali did with the amazing Abby Hall.
Abby Hall, it is such a great pleasure to welcome you to Dirt Church Radio. So I got the joy of meeting you at Ultra Trail Kosciuszko, and you had a solid win there. How was your time away, and will we see you back in Australasia anytime soon?
Well, thank you so much, Ellie. Good to be seeing you again, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, it was an incredible experience out there. I had about a 2-week trip out in Australia and just fell in love with it. So it's already on my radar of scheming to get back there because, it was a really special trip.
And Lucy was probably a big part of getting you over, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got to hang with my amazing friend, Lucy Bartholomew, who just seems to know everyone everywhere we go and is just the queen of Australian trail running for good reason. And
totally.
Just such a wonderful friend, too. So she and I had too much fun road tripping around. She ran the GPT miler the weekend before, and we made our way out to Kazi and just saw such a great stretch of country. I mean, pretty much all across Victoria, and got to stop in Bright and just had a really awesome trip. So I feel like I had a pretty good sampling of Australia in my time there, getting to see the Snowies and the Grampians and a lot in between.
Lucy described you as being like the American version of her, and what traits of hers do you admire?
Well, it's certainly nice to hear from a friend that I admire so much. But I do think that Lucy and I have, been drawn to each other for a while, and our friendship's been growing whenever we get to see each other because we share a lot of the same values. I think that how we view the sport and our relationship to it and our, own personal growth and evolution that's occurred in us as individuals as a result of loving this sport is I wouldn't say necessarily one for one because we're all on our own like individual journeys, but like we share our approach to the sport in a lot of ways. And the way that we can both, I think, care about the sport while not being completely defined by it, but also giving it our all and learning as much from it as we can. And like meeting good people along the way, having good experiences along the way. So I think, yeah, we share a lot of values in how we approach things.
How did you guys meet?
We first met, gosh, I feel like we first met like maybe at Hard Rock a number of years ago, maybe 2019 or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think the first time that we really we kind of had like a pen pal friendship going for a while. We're always leaving voice messages for each other. And then like she made a trip out to the US earlier this year where we got to spend a lot more time together in person. And it was really fun having her here in Arizona where I live. And kind of a cool, like, we got to kind of bookend the year with Lucy coming out here at the first part of the year and then me going out her way later in the year. So that was really special. And then like, I don't know, I think a lot of people who make friends in this sport can attest to the fact that like the trail running friendships just like get deep really quickly because you can so often end up in these scenarios where you're like in the mountains, problem solving, getting lost, like, I don't know, like going to the bathroom in a bush, like bonding over the like everything in between kind of moments that the sport somehow just like gets you real close real quick. And so, yeah, I feel like we just dove in once we started getting to spend time together in person.
It was really fun seeing you two have, support each other and have such a good time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask because we're New Zealand based. So have you looked at Tarawera before? Any ideas about coming over here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually have just been kind of going through this conversation in my head the last couple of days because I want to go for a golden ticket this coming year, and I've been debating between Tarawera and Black Canyon, which is here, kind of in our backyard. So it's kind of like the toss up between, getting to do a race that's close to home, which is not every day that I get to do that. And it's very similar to the trails that I'm kind of training on in the winter, or making another trip back to that wonderful part of the world, which a lot of my teammates, Adidas Terrex teammates, are gearing up for as a group. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards Black Canyon, but Tarawera is like certainly on my list, like in the not so far future. Even if
that's exciting because it is there, and I know Ruth is a good friend, and she had said that the Adidas team is like kind of targeting Tarawera, so it's going to be a really exciting year, I think.
Oh, I know. Like the team is so psyched to be sending a group there, and have just heard nothing but amazing things through. I mean, not only friends that have run it over the years, but especially like some of the local Kiwi runners like Dan and Ruth, and
So Kosci was quite a kind of, I don't know, I want to say revelation, but it's probably not revelation, but like it seemed like it meant a lot to you because you've had a really tough couple of years. Yeah. So can you talk us through what's gone on for you for the past couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So in June 2023, I had a bad accident on the trails, took kind of a freak step and like hyperextended my leg, tore a lot of things, broke bones, like I had a big surgery about a month later, doing kind of like LCL reconstruction, meniscus repair, bone graft in my tibial plateau. There's another ligament I'm missing. Another one. LCL, what's the other one? Anyway. And it's been a real journey. I got back to kind of walking again after a few months. And it was, like a serious enough injury that, it, as motivated as I was to get back to the sport, like it did, cast a lot of doubt on what level I would actually be able to return to.
I'm a big dreamer. Like, dreams and goals play a really important part in my journey in the sport and my daily life. And it's, to me, kind of like how I grow as a person through all of this. Like, setting a scary goal, being like, can I, like, put the pieces together to actually do it. And so for a while, like, it was just kind of this fire burning bright for me without feeling like I was close at all. It was a lot of like one-legged cycling for a while, and a lot of, then finally getting back to hiking, getting back to my first running steps. And this was all while I had going on in the background, the deferral spot for UTMB, which I had deferred. And, when I was in the, ER the day it all happened, it's like, of course my brain is first going to like UTMB 2024. And then like the months are ticking away, and it's like, wow, it's a tall order. To do about, 14 months after the initial accident. Ultimately put this build together, made it happen, got to the finish line of UTMB this year, which in and of itself was really meaningful to me because I was able to cross the finish line of an ultra again, and I worked so hard to get there. I think coming out of that, I still hadn't felt like I was able to demonstrate like the level I'd gotten back to athletically, which I was pretty happy with. Like, training was starting to go pretty well, particularly like in the spring. Like, as I was able to like start stacking up the weeks again, I was pretty pleased with how well things were coming back. But to be honest, it was, a lot of people who have been through a running injury can attest to this experience where coming back, I ended up having an issue on the opposite leg, just like an overused thing in the IT band. And like was able to like figure it out enough for UTMB. But like, I think in hindsight, I realized a little bit more clearly how held back I was by some of that other stuff that was popping up. And ultimately it was just like maybe a little too much too soon. I don't have regret about it, but it's kind of why I didn't have the performance that I dreamed of. And, I think I came out of that experience feeling pretty eager for another opportunity to race. So this fall, I was able to just put together some just solid, nice, normal training, not like the big UTMB days or like big mountain days or anything, but just like some good runs, some good workouts, good treatment here in Flagstaff with my physio who I see, good strength work, just kind of the non-glamorous building blocks. And I'm really happy with where I got to, mostly in the way of feeling totally pain-free, which is awesome and a huge place to land after all of this. And yeah, I signed up for Kazi, I think in probably like early October or so. And Lucy was definitely the deciding factor in choosing to come out to Australia, because I think I had, spent a number of weeks this summer in the Chamonix area, kind of, largely by myself, just like head down training. And I think I came out of that experience just reminded how much happier I am when I'm able to be around my team, be around friends that where it's like, yes, we're catching miles, we're training, but we're all laughing around the dinner table together or sharing those moments of life in between. And so anytime I get to, make a choice on my calendar that means I get to like share it with someone, I feel like that is just makes it way more meaningful. So to come out to Australia and share that time with Lucy, like the trip was already so full of fun and memories that by the time race day came around, it was really a cherry on top. And I kind of feel like that showed itself in how the race felt and went down for me. Like I just felt not only confident in where I'd gotten to in training and everything this fall and in the greater context of the last now almost year and a half, but also just like really feeling a lot of joy in the experience and the time of the fun time with a friend down there.
That's You know, like when you're saying all of this has given me so many flashbacks of amazing memories that I've had as well, which is, you know, when you're away, or even here, like, because we live in Rotorua and we have Lucy's basically lived with us for months around Tarawera before, but also, you know, like lots of other people as well. And you do have these amazing chats at dinner tables or that sort of thing. And it is a real highlight of our sport, is having time with good people around events, which, I'm sure lots of people listening will absolutely relate to that as well. It's all a big part of our sport.
It's so true. Like, I even noticed that for both Lucy and I racing back-to-back weekends, her at GPT and then me at Kazi, like, I feel like we both knew when it was time to, like, talk, like, number of gels, carbs, like, where am I going to see you, the shuttle bus, like, logistics, and when it was time to just be, like, you know, talking about, like, just laughing or having, like, silly conversations about who knows what else. But, like, sometimes you also need that too, especially if you're feeling nervous before a race, to, like, to know when to just be able to sit around the dinner table and maybe not talk about running sometimes too, I feel like is equally important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One thing that, I mean, you've talked about the growth that you get from working towards an event, but I reckon that I'm sure you've probably had heaps of growth that has come from this injury. Like, what kind of learnings have you had from this time where you've had to really work hard to even get back to walking and to hiking and then to running and then to being at a point where you can compete? So what do you think about that? Like, what growth do you feel has come from that?
I mean, I think the biggest, and I don't even know how this, like, it would be necessarily measurable as in the way of growth, but, like, I think the love for what I do is really outlined, like, in a permanent way. And I felt so, I feel really like the love for trail running and running ultras and for the whole sport is what got me through that hard time. And feeling like, and I guess too, when I say the love for the sport too, I guess I'm kind of talking about these other things that we're mentioning, the friendships, the going places, the, you know, getting caught out in a big storm and problem solving, like all the moments that make it up, you know, not just the competing, but like the memories, the life I've built around this stuff. The love for that is really what got me through a lot of the hard times. And even when there was an unknown, like when it wasn't like this very clear path back to running, I think I also was able to draw from things that the sport has taught me in the past, about, you know, nonlinear trajectories of growth and how good things take time, and to really cultivate patience in the day-to-day. That really helped me a lot. And yeah, I won't lie, it definitely was not always pretty or easy. And there were definitely months in there where I was just like, I don't feel like I'm growing at all. This is horrible. And I'm struggling so much. In some ways, I feel like I was really lucky to like have a lot of these, like, you know, moments of growth like occur like once I was able to be back to what I loved. And that's been something I've been conflicted with too, is like, you know, how much of this was me able to just like grow because I, you know, was able to get back to what I love, and how much of it was inherent to the process itself. But like, I also just felt so lucky to have amazing support around me from my husband, from, you know, my coach, from my friends, from my teammates. Like, that was, you know, that's kind of part of the love too that carried me through it. And so, yeah, that was a really meaningful thing that I carry forward with me, because I think it's often so easy to go through life, through struggles, feeling alone, feeling like you're the only one who understands, or you're the only one who, you know, is feeling the pain. But like, I think each of us have more people around us than we realize that really want to be there and want to support. And like want the full you. And so that was, I think, something that my eyes were really open to. I think prior to this injury, I was probably leaning more towards like perfectionist, don't dwell on the hard moments, keep it to yourself, keep it fun and light and move on. But I feel like it opened me up to like being more vulnerable with people. And then also now like trying to like figure out like how I can be best there for my friends and for those around me who might be, suffering or having difficulty, whether it's in physical health or mental health or anything in between.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's hard being vulnerable, but it also really strengthens and deepens connections and just raises awareness. And like people don't always realize that things are really tough if you don't talk about it. So it is good to kind of be real, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I feel like that's I don't know, I keep relating everything back to the fun times Lucy and I've had, but it's like fun when you have those friendships where one moment you can be like aching with laughter and the next moment you can be like, hey, I have this hard thing that I want to like talk about or share, or like, this thing I'm struggling with. And I feel like it's equally important to find friends that you can like operate on both ends of things with.
Absolutely. I think it's good. It's part of that balance, right? Like, yeah. One of the things that I did want to talk about, which you kind of touched on, is I've heard great things about your hubby and what a powerhouse of a couple you are.
Aww.
So, and he's an athlete too, right? So how do you guys balance training and travel for races while still prioritizing your relationship?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we met through the sport back in 2016 and met at a group run in Boulder where I had just moved at the time and didn't know anyone, had a hunger for getting into ultra running, and was basically just showing up at every group run in town being like, hi, I'm Abby, want to be friends, want to run? And yeah, in the case of Cordis, we met instantly and started adventuring together and yeah, like building a life together. We just dove in immediately. And I think, yeah, like so many things in our marriage and our partnership have been things that we've learned through the sport together and, doing big mountain objectives together, multi-day projects, things like that, as well as like crewing each other at fast racing. And I think it's just been really like, yeah, a really meaningful kind of catalyst to growth in our marriage and like how we talk about things, how we communicate, how we problem solve together. And yeah, like definitely balance. It's a balance for sure, like with our own individual athletic goals. And, sometimes it's like one of us is training for something flat and fast. One of us wants to be in the mountains. One of us wants to be training here. But I think we do a pretty good job of kind of figuring out, okay, whose goal is kind of like the A goal at the moment. And then maybe that person will get like the priority when it comes to like, where are we training? Where are we heading? And I think we do a good job taking turns there. And for sure, he's like he's like the crew whisperer for me. Like having him crew me at UTMB and like, so many races over the years is like so meaningful. And I think Lucy got a glimpse of this last weekend, like because Cordis was texting her during the race being like, tell Abby this and this and this. And Lucy was like, wow, you guys are really like, how did she word it? Kind of like he cracks the whip. Like he's very, like he pushes me to get the most out of myself. He's not the one going like, oh, like it's just amazing, like what you're like, he's like pushing me to the last minute, like getting every ounce out of me. And I think that's one thing I love about the way we work together as like a couple and as athletes is like, we know the time and place for being like, we're home and cozy and totally at peace and totally not in athlete mode. And then we know when there's a time when it's like, we're pushing each other to get the most out of ourselves and to like make our big dreams realities. And so I really appreciate that we can like see both sides in each other. And that one doesn't like we try to make it so that one of those modes doesn't take away from the other. But it's something that I think is so different for every couple. Like a lot of couples I know are, both involved in the sport, and I feel like everyone has their own way of doing it. And I love seeing how everyone does it.
That's cool. It's interesting that he is kind of the whip cracker, not the like, you're doing great, babe.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, if he like hops on, runs intervals with me or hops on a bike and joins me, like my running gets way faster and better, because I feel like when someone sees a lot in you, you can see more in yourself. And I think that's some of the power in it too. So yeah.
So he raises your bar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So now you're back running strongly again. What are your race plans looking like?
Yeah, I have been actually thinking about this a lot today, so it's a very well-timed question. Like I mentioned earlier, at the moment I am leaning towards Black Canyon as where I'll go and try and get a golden ticket, and hoping to return to the Western States in 2024.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, 2025.
25. Yeah.
Yep, 25. Thank you. And then I am at this point in time leaning towards going back to CCC at the end of the summer. So rather than doing UTMB again, I've already done CCC 3 times now, but it's a great race, and I think it works really well with Western States as a summer. And I really am also kind of mindful of knowing that, I've just gone through this period of asking a lot of my body in the, return to sport. And I don't think I'd quite be ready to go for like the double of Western States UTMB like this coming year. So I think that's what makes me lean towards, if I get a ticket, Western States, and then back to CCC. And then a couple of the races I was also going to do in the spring were, I'm going to do the UTMB Blue Trail race in Tenerife in the spring.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we have a team training camp out there. So I'll tag that on at the end of our time out in the Canaries. And then if I didn't get a golden ticket, I would probably return to Transvolcania. Kind of a fun blend of like some new things, some stuff close to home, some returning to races that I have great memories at. So in general, I think the theme for me in 25 is getting back to some of the like faster turnover 100Ks, and Western States being the faster 100-miler, which is exciting. Hopefully, if I could get a ticket, that would be fun. Me and many other people want that. So
there's a lot of people that are keen for tickets, but also just keen on lottery as well. They're
exactly.
watching,
definitely not counting my chickens before they hatch. And of course. And there's also the lotteries this weekend, which could throw all kinds of curveballs in. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, please just let them get in through the lottery.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably lots of the competitive athletes going, it'd be good if some of you got in via the lottery.
Exactly.
UTMB and Western States are obviously the kind of 2 pinnacle events in our endurance world. What is that makes you want to go to them? Like, especially in UTMB, like you've obviously been there, you want to go back again. What is it about those 2 events that you think kind of draws everyone in?
I mean, I think they're certainly really different. To me, I think UTMB feels like the kind of international pinnacle of the sport. Like the fact that people from all corners of the world are coming together to put this world-class stage together is just a really beautiful and cool thing. And it really feels like, I know we have official world championships, but it also feels like, another version of that in our sport. And I think it's, just a really cool blend of strengths that are required to do well there. It's a mix of solid running, some, experience in the mountains and, fast ascending and descending. And so it's just like this cool sampling that I think is a fun challenge that keeps so many people coming back for more year after year. Western states, on the other hand, so different, and so fast and so challenging with the elements of heat and that time of year in California. I think that Western states to me kind of represents, at least as an American trail runner, it kind of feels like the first dream that so many American trail runners have. I think like when I was first getting into the sport, I felt like I knew of Western states before I knew of UTMB. And it was like just where so many of the people that I looked up to cut their teeth. And there's something really special about the community at Western States. Like despite being such a high profile event, it does still somehow feel like such a community race at the same time. Just like all gathered on the track at the finish. Like it just feels like, I don't know, kind of echoes like the memories of, high school track and being in the infield as, people are reuniting with their crews and families after big days out. And there's something so magical about that. At UTMB, I've done CCC 3 times and then the full UTMB this past year. And I was pretty blown away to see just like how truly epic like the full UTMB is. And I think just that feeling of completing the loop was more meaningful than I expected it to be. I was kind of thinking in my head like, oh, CCC will feel like the same thing, just shorter. But it really was really crazy seeing like the crowd support out at UTMB. And I do feel like every year it somehow gets crazier and crazier out there. But both are so special and like, I don't know, 2 sides of a coin in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I feel like we're seeing that definitely in Australasia anyway, that the spectatorship is growing. Like I don't know if you've noticed it, if it's the same, because you've been around the traps a while now as well. Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that like it's becoming, I think as better media coverage and live streams and things like that grow, so do the spectators. And I think a lot of us can attest to the experience of having done a race and then having, family members or friends that aren't even familiar with the sport that talk to you after and go, oh my gosh, I was hooked. I couldn't stop following it. I was like setting alarms in the night to refresh or see where you were. And I think it has this kind of addictive quality. I think because it spans like such long times too, it's pretty fun for people to follow. And I think while in-person spectatorship, it can be a little bit trickier with logistics and seeing people at multiple points in the course. I feel like it's pretty cool just seeing the sport rise to the era of like, streaming and how people are able to follow races from all over the world. I mean, I know that like my parents have kind of realized, gosh, it's easier for us to sit at home and watch a race on a live stream that's, following her along the course than it is for us to see her at, 2 aid stations. So
this is true.
a whole lot cheaper and easier to do from home. Yeah.
Totally. Thinking about those changes, like what about areas that we still need to kind of improve on in this sport? Because are there any areas that you think we can do better?
I mean, I think that we're seeing a lot of I think there's a kind of growing divide in the sport right now between kind of like, those that are pursuing this kind of like international UTMB track and those that are kind of like wanting to stick to this like grassroots model of like racing in their backyard, racing in their local communities. And I am a big believer that like both of those things can really exist. And I think it's, probably largely up to, I think like us that are pros in the sport can also do a good job of still continuing to support those like smaller races while fitting in, like the big high profile races into our season. I've been really excited to see like the growth around, sponsorship opportunities for athletes and individuals in the sport. I think there's still a lot of growth to occur around like diversity in that space, as well as like storytelling around the diverse stories in the space. I, for one, am like a big believer that, like people will not remember years from now what my race results were, but they can remember like how I made them feel while I was doing that.
Yeah.
And I think that can really occur through good storytelling, about the
Yeah.
journey, about the lows, about the failures, about the doubt and the moments in between. And I think that's one area of the sport I'd love to see more of, is like, I want to hear more stories from more people in more corners of the world and how they got here, how they fell in love with trail running too.
Yeah.
Right now, I think a lot of that seems to come from like these kind of hub cities, you know, like where a lot of trail runners are. But I know that there's so many other communities where trail running is really starting to take root. And I want to hear, you know, see brands pouring more into some of those other places and the athletes that are coming from those spots.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? With the, I guess the growth in professionalism and sponsorship and how it's allocated and the pressures, right, that come from that. Like I know I've often talked with my elite friends about sponsorships and how it works and you know how it feels, because it really, you're a runner, but then there's all these kind of other commitments that you've got to meet, or people that you've got to, you know, to get your payday, I guess. And sometimes it's a clash, right? Like if you're a private person, or, you know, like you don't want it to be about image. It's kind of about sharing those values or sharing those stories. So still feels like you doing that. Like how do you find that kind of aspect of professionalism?
It's a really interesting question. I think for me, it might sound like heartless, and I don't mean it in a heartless way, but I do feel like, you know, as a pro athlete, like I do feel like I work in marketing, you know, like I work
Yeah.
I work for, like, I'm paid by marketing teams of companies to, you know, represent their products and their brand image in our communities and out on the trails. And I think it can be easy for individuals that are, you know, looking into like, you know, getting sponsored by a brand to feel like it is like their personal journey that a brand is buying. And I think for me, it's helped to create some separation between like me as a person and me as like, you know, like working in marketing for these companies and representing their brands. And those are, to me, often overlap. Like, of course, I'm going to openly share about my journey, and I want to share that story to inspire people and, you know, point them to like the awesome companies that support me. But I also know that there's also pieces of me that live far beyond whatever contract I might have, like my love for running or like the things I learned through the sport. So like to me, those are also separate pieces that that to me don't go anywhere, regardless of, you know, what logos I'm wearing.
It's a really great way of looking at it, and I haven't weirdly looked at it that way before, but I think it's a very, you know, pragmatic approach to it. And I guess like on that note then, when you're looking at sponsorship, I don't know how long you've been with the company you're sponsored by, but do you have these chats? Like do our values align? Like what kind of goes on there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fortunately, I've been with my amazing sponsor, Adidas Terrex, for I'm about to start year 8.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's wild, and I just signed a new contract that'll take me through year 10 with them, which is really cool. And I mean, the big reason that I have been with them for so long is that like so many of our values are aligned, and it's been really special to also work with a brand on a long-term basis like that. But the values are certainly part of it, especially as the sport is growing and changing. I mean, when I started with the brand, I mean, I'm not even sure if we had like a team. We didn't have like a team presence out at UTMB or Western States. Or like, there's been so much growth that's occurred, you know, compared to the model now where we're like all as a team at start and finish lines of these big races. But for me, like, you know, having a brand that's been willing to also support me through thick and thin has been really meaningful. And yeah, my sponsors have been, really supportive through the period of injury. And like, Adidas set me up with amazing opportunities in the rehabilitation phase of, getting to like go to Austria and recover and work with amazing experts as I was, starting to walk again and do strength again. And it was just like an incredible opportunity. So I really feel like their long-term investment in me is something I'm so grateful for. And I'm really proud to represent them.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, because I didn't even I had a chat with Amanda Basham the other day about sponsorship through pregnancy and childbirth and motherhood and, those considerations. But I hadn't thought about long-term injury. But that's amazing that you've been so well supported, because often that's a really challenging time mentally for people to feel like you just kind of get left behind, like you're not running, so you're not a runner. And I can imagine that some sponsors would probably drop people through that kind of level of injury or level of recovery time.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. And it's, ultimately always business at the end of the day. But like it is also like, I say, all this about like, oh, like it's like I work in marketing, but it's also, of course, it is always personal to a degree too. And, I've been fortunate to develop like really meaningful relationships with the people I get to, work with at these companies. And that support is really huge and plays a big role in those hard times. And it's ultimately like, people that have become also friends and family. So it's just like this strange blend of business and and really meaningful relationships at the same time.
I can totally understand and appreciate that. You've raced in lots of different countries. What have been some of the highlights?
Let's see. I've definitely gone to the Canary Islands more in my life than I ever thought I would go to this beautiful place. That's been one theme I would underline. So it's been really special getting to race out at Transgran Canaria a couple times out there, Transvolcania, Madeira, which isn't technically in the Canaries, but not far, as well as like our team training camps are there most years. So I've found myself just really loving that part of the world. Those islands to me are so unique because they're all so different. And like one of my favorites is La Palma. And it actually kind of reminds me, there's parts that remind me of our terrain here at home in northern Arizona, where it's kind of volcanic and there's these pine forests. And it's like been really cool to find the similarities between somewhere so far and somewhere that is home to me. Gotten to spend a lot of time in Europe for sure. Another favorite is in Austria. I've really enjoyed getting to know Austria more. Our Adidas sponsors a race. We have a race in Bad Gastein, Austria, called Infinite Trails.
Oh, cool.
And it is this gorgeous, dreamy valley. The whole Gastein area there. I highly recommend it. It's one of the first places I recommend when a trail runner goes, I've got 10 days, I want to make a trip to Europe. Where should I go? That is a place that I highly recommend for just like sleepy little towns, beautiful mountain trails, and it's just like there's what's it called, like thermal, like a lot of thermal baths and spa things there. So it's like very relaxing and dreamy off the trails as well. But that's a favorite place too. And then I would say that like the other favorite of mine is the UK. Like I really love and this is all in addition to Australia, of course. Australia is like a new love on this list, but I feel like I've gone on about But the race in Wales, Snowdonia, Ultra Trail Snowdonia, Cordis has done that the last 2 years, and gosh, I have just loved going out there with him and crewing. I mean, I've just been crewing and training, and I'm like, hey, so you want to go back this year? Because I really want to go back in May. I've really grown to love it out there. It's just amazing mountain running and pretty accessible from like a few hours away from London, such a big airport. So that's another spot that I just like so highly recommend anyone go to if they're looking to do like an international race. the 100-miler out there is just burly, and I mean the other races and distances out there look amazing as well, and great people out there too.
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool to hear. And Welsh people they're lovely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I felt like there were similarities to Kazi. Like I felt like in the high country, it reminded me of Wales there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think it's kind of the big rocky kind of granite, or is it the big open kind of, or just a combination?
I think a combination, like just the way the mountains are like scaled, and I don't know, kind of some of the perspectives and plants and rock reminded me of that for sure. And then I think just like in both places too, like really good people that are really psyched about the trails that like make it fun. I'm probably biased too, because it's also fun to travel somewhere so far from home, but be able to like thoroughly speak English and, you know, like just like dive right in with people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How's your Spanish after all the time in the Canaries?
Horrible. I studied French in school, and so since like, you know, spending a lot of time in the Chamonix area, have been like feverishly, you know, keeping my Duolingo streak alive to keep working on my French. And that is enough for me working on one language. But
fair, that's fair.
Yeah, you would think I would be learning Spanish considering we live like 4 or 5 hours from Mexico, but I'm one language at a time.
It's hard enough to speak English, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
I know Lucy said one thing that she loved about you traveling with her is that she was like, I could just go into a cafe and I'll just buy whatever I'm having and she'll have the same thing. So like obviously Lucy's plant-based and you're vegan.
Yeah.
So what's the, you know, like what's your dining scene like in Flagstaff?
Oh yeah, I mean that was so fun. It was like Lucy and I were like practically finishing each other's sentences about the meals, like, and then we'll get sweet potatoes, and then we'll put tahini on them, and then we'll roast them. And then it's like we're just like doing this dance in the kitchen, like, oh, this is just like I have 2 extra hands. This is great.
I that's making me laugh because I know how much she loves sweet potatoes. She is like the sweet potato queen.
I feel that. Yeah, it's so great. We had a lot of fun together. I've been vegan for like, gosh, I think it's like maybe 11 or 12 years now. Over 10 at this point for sure. I can't like remember exactly when, but it's been a while. So I feel like I don't really think about it too much anymore. But I obviously love to like when I'm traveling to like have places in the kitchen because I also just enjoy cooking a lot and I like being able to make my own food. And it's like, I think especially with as much travel as I do for the sport, it's the kind of like piece that makes me feel like kind of at home wherever I am, if I can like, you know, just like have my groceries and do my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to, you know, training, have you had to supplement anything or are there any kind of special hacks?
I do take an iron supplement. And I've done that for a while, like even like when I was in college. So that's kind of been an ongoing supplement I take, but otherwise, not too much. I like to take magnesium at night to help my muscles relax, but yeah, that's like the gist of it mainly. Not too much.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I know you have loved like some kind of more adventure type runs as well. Are you still doing that? Like Nolan's and John Muir? Like talk us through what you've done with them.
Let's see. So the John Muir Trail was like my first big goal, one of my first big goals in the sport back when I started in 2016. And I went for it that first year. Like I did my first ultra in June, my second ultra in July, and then went for it in September. And it was like right when I met Cordis. And I was like, if I buy you a plane ticket, will you come crew me? It was like, you know, the new boyfriend at the time. And I was like, come along with me and we'll have an adventure. And I like totally failed massively, like, only 30 miles into the 220-mile trail. And I was like, wow, I've got a lot to learn. This is like an advanced project. I think there's like, it's so easy when you get into the sport and you look at, like, say, the times for something like the JMT, and you're like, oh, if I just like hold a good walking clip, like, I got this record in the bag. And it's like, turns out it is so much more than that. Like, yes, it is walking, but it is advanced walking with a big pack on crazy terrain at very high altitude. And there's so many unique parts to like something like the JMT that make it this complex goal. And so I immediately kind of took the perspective of it being like this multi-year goal, which I still consider it a multi-year goal for me. So I went for it again in 2020 and finished the trail, did it unsupported, which was really cool and unique in that you have to, like carry your own bear canister and all that. And it's quite a heavy pack. But I did it unsupported and missed the record by about 6 hours, which maybe sounds like a lot, but over like 4+ days or whatever, felt pretty close. But still realized that there was more to improve on before I could like master something like that. And yeah, I'm not sure when I'll go for it next, but like I will absolutely be back on the John Muir Trail.
What changes would you make, Abby?
Oh gosh, this is like my ultimate, like, I'd be like, Cordis and I always just sit around at night talking about like,
I believe that.
Tomorrow, what would be different to my pack and what different nutrition would I do? And like, I mean, the big thing with something like JMT is like, because like when I went for it unsupported, like, you're carrying all your food with you from the start in a bear can. So you obviously want things that are like really efficient weight to calorie ratios.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty unique part of it. Like you want a lot of foods that are like dehydrated, but also not time consuming to prepare. So it's this really like tricky balance of things that you could like, like have a little jar in your pack where you're like soaking like potatoes or dried, like, not dried like whole beans, but like dried refried beans or things like that would like soak, and you could, cold soak things and eat on the go like that. And then, I think probably just like overall pack size. And then the one question that I think is like fun to deliberate about with anyone who's gone for some of these longer trail objectives is like sleep distribution. So like I think I slept over 4 days. I think it was like 6 hours and 20 minutes or something over 4.5 days. So it was like pretty short dirt naps, but it's always interesting to strategize about when and how those are occurring. Like if you're doing like, I talked to some people who are big believers in like sleeping longer, like quite a bit longer, but then going quite a bit faster during the day versus like being in this like sleep deprived marching state. So I feel like that's always a fun variable to play with. And then the other fun objective that's a personal favorite is lowest to highest, which Cordis and I went for 2 years ago in 2022, around this time of year. And lowest to highest is basically connecting the lowest and highest points in the continental US. So from Badwater Basin to Mount Whitney, which many people will go, oh, isn't that Badwater 135? Which Badwater is like the road version, which I'm ultimately ending at Whitney Portal Trailhead, so not the Mount Whitney stuff. But lowest to highest is kind of what people have come up with, this general route that is like an off-trail route. So you're crossing 2 ranges, the Panamint and the Inyo ranges, before you then get to the feet of the Sierra and climb Mount Whitney. So it's a really dramatic route for anyone who loves the desert and the Sierra, both of which are like my happy places and like so near and dear to my heart. And so Cordis and I went for it a couple of years ago and just had so much fun together. Some of my favorite memories ever, just on these loopy overnights together, deep in the desert, exchanging lows at different times. And we ultimately, Cordis had an injury come up while we were out there. So we had to stop in Lone Pine, like the town at the bottom of Mount Whitney. So we called it Lowest to Lone Pine, but I'd like to go back for the full thing. At some point. But like, to me, those objectives have taught me a lot about like how to take care of myself for long periods of time. I think even like, say in the race last weekend, it's like we had we had weather delays. We were out there longer than planned. I ran some extra miles. Like there's so many unexpected elements to running far and fast and pushing our boundaries while being in these natural places that are super volatile and kind of crazy at times. And I've learned so much about, how to take care of myself, not just over 20, 30 hours, but over 60, 70, 80 hours. And that's been a really cool kind of source of confidence to pull from, so that when I get to a race like UTMB this year, where it's like, all right, going to be marching this one out, it's like, okay, I know how to do a 30-hour thing. I know how to kind of like take care of myself. So if I'm having a bad day out there, I can keep like putting one foot in front of the other. And yeah, that's been like something that has kept me humble and teaches me a lot about the sport. As much as I love the fast racing, I also love like just going for a really long time too.
Yeah. And I mean, I often say race is a safety scaffold, right, to help you do these big challenges. And so I guess the beauty of a race is that you'll be like, well, at least at the next stop, I've got an aid station.
Yes.
Versus when you're doing things like what you've been doing, those big adventures, it's not there. Like you're totally reliant on yourself. There's no other safety scaffold. It's you're shouldering all the responsibility. And I think that's something that a lot of runners don't have the beauty or the kind of inspiration or inkling to do, but it's so valuable, right?
It's so true. Yeah, like even things like how efficiently you're like on something like a scale of JMT, like the efficiency of like time spent filtering water and like these little things that like just add up to time. Like, I mean, I look at like that 6 hours I lost and I'm like, gosh, well, if every 2 hours I was stopping for 10 minutes to filter water, do the math quick, but like it's, the time adds up really quickly while you're out there. And if you can find ways to like simplify those systems, it's like, every little bit counts when you're on your own. But compared to racing when you have a crew, and you can really ride that line a lot closer too, because I think when you are somewhere so remote, you do have to consciously stay a bit below the line, because otherwise it can just start to get pretty dangerous if you're riding that too close and you're, hours and hours away from safety. So it's it's always a balance.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that's thinking of doing something like that for the first time? Like if I've only ever kind of done, races or those kind of safer, shorter runs, what would you say to someone that's like, oh, I kind of would like to do a big adventure?
Oh, yeah. I think two of my thoughts would be like, first, to not be afraid to set like a really big goal. I think it can be really daunting. Like I look back, and when I first started running, I ran my first 50K and I was like, okay, cool. I want to go for the record on the John Muir Trail. Like, if that was like someone I was talking to now who told me that, I'd be like, wow, that's a big goal. But I learned so much, and even just going for it and failing at it, like, and it taught me so much about like, I don't know, how much was involved in a big project like this, that I think just going for it can be so huge. And I think the other thing that I would like encourage too, if someone was interested in trying something like this, is like, knowing that even if you do have a time goal or you're going for a record or something like that and you miss it, like you miss the time, like it's still a really valuable thing to like get to the finish line of one of these objectives, even if it takes way longer than you had planned. So like, I feel like, it can be easy to, want to ride too close to the sun and be like, oh, it's like record or bust. But I think there's so much to be learned from, getting to the finish line of any of these things, that's always a worthy goal as well.
Yeah, and I guess time spent in nature that you survive is always well spent.
Exactly.
Abby, it's been so fun chatting. I feel like I could just keep chatting with you for ages.
I know, same.
It's
And I wish I could
really
I
enjoyable.
want another hour to ask you some questions too.
Maybe another time. Come to Tarawera and you can hang out. We'll have sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
I better remember, one of the final questions that we ask people that come on Dirt Church is, Abby Hall, what is your greatest run ever?
Ooh. Oh, my greatest run ever. Oh my gosh. I feel like, I don't know if we could consider it a run, but like the lowest to highest adventure that I was talking about, I think was my favorite one. Like one of my favorite ones I've done, like especially because I got to share it with Cordis, and there were just so many moments in there. But I feel like that's kind of cheating because it was like, so many hours. I got like multiple sunsets in there, multiple sunrises.
Got so much extra bang for buck.
Yeah, exactly. But like I think maybe like more on the running side, I would say like probably one of my favorite runs was running Transwilkania in 2022. Like it was just such a cool feeling to like not only cover that kind of ground and run across the island, but like you are climbing the mountain like at sunrise and you look back and you can see like the peaks from the other islands peeking out through the clouds. And it's just like these bright green trees, hot pink sunrise. You're starting off a race day, and it just like was one of those cool, like really pinch me moments of like, this is so beautiful and so special that I get to do this. But I'm also just as happy, like running Mount Eldon from home, like going up Blue Dot and down Private Reserve or down the road. Those are like trails I'll run a lot from home. And to me, there's like nothing better than like sunset on our mountain here at home. Like I'm a big sunset runner. Like, so that is like my time of day. And that's the time I love to be out. So like anytime I can catch sunset, like out in the desert, like up high in like mountain desert, that's like my happy place.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. It does.
Yeah.
Do you have to worry about animals?
I probably should. No. we have some mountain lions who I know also love sunset. They love sunset as much as I do.
Yeah.
They're like,
maybe that's your spirit animal, Abby.
Maybe it is. Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's why they leave me alone. I stay out of trouble, fortunately. But so far, so good.
That's good. Long way at last.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, it's been an absolute joy having you on Dirt Church Radio, Abby. I'll wrap it up there, and we'll look forward to seeing what the next year brings for you. Hopefully lots of amazing races and that golden ticket to Western States.
Hopefully. I'm going to do my best to go for that thing. So thank you. I really appreciate it, Allie, and just love the conversation. So thanks for having me on.
I got to see Abby on the course a couple of times.
Oh, cool.
And at the start, like obviously starting the 100K, these people, it's like they walk among us, right? Like they're human beings, and they have people turn up to their door and try and do things or sell them stuff and engage. But
Sell them clean roofs.
Just athleticism and poise, but also looked like she was having a really incredible time. And it was just a super inspiring, amazing thing to watch. So,
Wicked.
Right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Dirt Church Radio is presented by me, Matt Raymond.
Ellie Pottinger, who's not here right now but was earlier, and me, Andrew McDowell.
We're on all the podcast platforms, so like, follow, and give us a rating. It really helps. And we're on social media at Dirt Church Radio, and you can email us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com.
Now, don't forget to sign up to our Substack for weekly newsletter and Aid Station podcast.
Don't forget to write them with your greatest run ever. We'd love to hear from you, and you can read them on the website too. Thanks to our sponsors, Further Faster, That's It, Squadron, and our Substack subscribers in the DCR Aid Station crew.
Stay tuned for our show in 1 week, isn't it?
Because it's Christmas.
Because it's the Christmas one. And then we're taking a break.
Mate wa.